Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy here for the Daily Blob, where we say, oh golly, this might get ugly really quick. So are you somebody that goes onto the internet and you use AI to ask all kinds of weird ass questions, and you kind of feel comfortable using that AI because you just feel like that conversation is between you and the AI, ChatGPT or whatever? Well, guess what? That is actually an interaction that can be logged. Those logs for ChatGPT are now going to be saved indefinitely, and at least the New York Times is going to be able to go through those logs to look for anything that might be incriminating against OpenAI and ChatGPT, which I think opens up just a tremendous number of questions about privacy and security in this modern world of artificial intelligence. So we have this coming from Ars Technica. New York Times to start searching deleted ChatGPT logs after beating OpenAI in court. So the New York Times is suing OpenAI because they're basically saying that they're illegally taking New York Times material in order to train and do that kind of stuff with their AI. And so now what they want to do is they want to look through the log files, basically the requests and the responses to the AI, to find incriminating evidence. Now, whether they find incriminating evidence about what OpenAI did or they find interesting things about your fetishes, that'll be an interesting question. And it is a curious thing to be thinking about. You know, when we talk about privacy, whether it's things like health privacy or sexual privacy or that type of deal, or you think about privacy from your organization or your company, things like trade secrets, that type of thing. Are you thinking about the fact that these AI systems can log all of that information and you don't really know how it's going to be used? And also, in this modern world of hacking, even if security is done well, right, but let's say OpenAI, if the information goes to a third party because of a court order, will they be able to protect the information the same way? Some very interesting questions. Last week, OpenAI raised objections in court, hoping to overturn a court order requiring the AI company to retain all ChatGPT logs indefinitely, including deleted and temporary chats. But Sydney Stein, the U.S. District Judge reviewing OpenAI's request, immediately denied OpenAI's rejections. He was seemingly unmoved by the company's claims that the order forced OpenAI to abandon, quote, long-standing privacy norms and weaken privacy protections that users expect based on ChatGPT's terms of service. Rather, Stein suggested that OpenAI's user agreement specified that their data could be retained as part of a legal process, which Stein said is exactly what is happening. The order was issued by the magistrate, led by the New York Times, requested it. The news plaintiffs claim the order was urgently needed to preserve potential evidence in their copyright case, alleging that ChatGPT users are likely to delete chats where they attempted to use chatbot to skirt paywalls to access news content. A spokesperson told Ars that OpenAI plans to keep fighting, but the ChatGPT maker seems to have few options left. The clock is ticking, and so far OpenAI has not provided any official updates since the June 5th blog post detailing which ChatGPT users will be affected. While it's clear that OpenAI has been and will continue to retain mounds of data, it would be impossible for the New York Times or any news plaintiffs to search through all that data. Instead, only a small sample would likely be accessed. But the curious thing here is the whole idea that OpenAI is now going to be retaining your data. We now know they will be retaining it indefinitely, even what is deleted, and third parties, through legal procedures, will be able to get access to that information. It's a curious thing. It's a curious thing to think about. Like, I don't think a lot of us have fully considered the ramifications, especially in some place like Trump's America, right? Trump's America, that is a new, wild new world that many of us are not used to. Think about if you're asking OpenAI about questionable information, right? Think about if you're in Texas and you ask OpenAI about abortions. right? Think about if you're somewhere else and you ask OpenAI about assisted suicide, somebody else, someplace else, and you ask, right, what it's now showing is that they can retain those records indefinitely, and if there's a legal reason to access that information, then the authorities will be able to get access to that information. And is that something that people are thinking about? One of the issues that I see with people anthropomorphizing artificial intelligence is that they feel like they have a relationship to it, right? ChatGPT wouldn't betray my trust. And when they think about ChatGPT not betraying their trust, they're not thinking about Sam Altman. Fuck Sam Altman, right? They're not thinking about OpenAI. They're not thinking about Elon Musk or whatever. No, they have a relationship. Like, as I've talked about many times before, there's this parasocial relationship, right? I have viewers that watch me. They watch me so much, they feel like they have a relationship with me. And then I meet them in the real world. And they're like, I've watched thousands of hours of you. And I'm like, I have no idea who the hell you are. Right? It's really disconcerting parasocial thing, right? Anyways, what becomes interesting is what happens when you have parasocial relationships with AI? And so you're not even thinking about it being a normal computer system, right? When I say request response, do you think, oh yeah, of course, that's how a computer system works? Or you're like, oh, I'm shocked you would talk about AI that way. It is deeper than a request response to me. Okay, well, as far as log file is concerned, that's all it is, right? Are you thinking that way? And when you sit there and you start plugging in random weird information, what happens if authorities can get access to that random weird information? I don't know. We're gonna be finding that out pretty soon. What does this mean for your company, right? What does this mean for your organization if you have your employees putting in possible trade secrets or whatever else into these systems, and now we know third parties can get access specifically to that information? Is this something that you're fully considering? And then just also the plane of attack. Think about this now, right? So if OpenAI, it actually makes a lot of sense for OpenAI to delete the log files after a reasonable amount of time, right? So any functionality that exists, anything that a company creates, right, is also a vulnerability. So there's this idea that OpenAI would want to collect all this information forever. But the thing is, if they collect all this information forever, and there are API keys, there is personal identifiable information, there is other stuff in there, that becomes a vulnerability for them. So there is this thought of, keep it for a reasonable amount of time, keep it for troubleshooting purposes and that type of deal, and then scrub it. So you might have a 6-hour log window or a 24-hour log window. And the good part there is if you delete after the 24 hours, even if a hacker is able to compromise your system, they'll only be able to get whatever the past 24 hours of data is. They will not be able to get 365 days or years and years and years of data, which is a thing to be concerned about, right? What becomes interesting now is that the courts are coming in, basically demanding that they keep these log files indefinitely. That now becomes just a major threat vector against OpenAI. The thought that either hackers or nation state intelligence operatives will be able to get in and get access to that type of information, that now creates a tremendous amount of threat to OpenAI. I'd be curious to see how a company like that tries to deal with that kind of thing. So yeah, so kind of interesting there, kind of interesting. Because of a lawsuit by the New York Times, all of your information is being saved. How comfortable do you feel about that? Does that make you feel warm and fuzzy inside? Like, hey, you need to use ChatGPT just a little bit more? I don't know. Put your thoughts down below. If you like these types of videos, give us a thumbs up. If you don't, give us a thumbs down. Leave us a great comment or a horrible comment. It doesn't matter in the modern world of social media, and interaction is an interaction. And with that, see y'all later.